What's good, people? Welcome back to AYFKM. Are you fucking kidding me? The podcast where we say what every sane person is thinking while watching American politics burn like a dumpster fire soaked in kerosene. I'm your host, Victoria Sharp, and if you're not mad yet, you're not paying attention. It's October 2025, and I need you all to understand something. We are currently in week 2 of a government shutdown. Week 2. And not just any shutdown. This is the "We Told You Project 2025 was coming and you thought we were exaggerating" shutdown. This is the "They said Trump wouldn't really do it" shutdown. This is the "maybe we should have listened to black women voters" shutdown. So, buckle up, because today we're breaking down how we got here, why this is about to get so much worse, and why, despite everything, I'm still more frustrated with spineless Democrats than I am surprised by Republicans doing exactly what they said they would do. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's where we are. The federal government shut down on September 30th, 2025. Now, Republicans control the White House, the House, and the Senate. Let me repeat that because it's important. They control everything. And somehow, they still manage to blame Democrats for the shutdown. You know what? I almost have to respect the audacity. It's like burning down your own house and then calling the fire department to complain about the water damage. But here's what's really happening, and this is where it gets terrifying. Trump has been waiting for this moment. He's been praying for this moment. Because under the cover of a shutdown, he gets to implement Project 2025. The 920-page playbook that he swore up and down during the campaign he knew nothing about. Remember that? I don't know anything about Project 2025. Meanwhile, he's literally tasked Russ Vought, the architect of Project 2025, with deciding which federal jobs to eliminate. Already, and I need you all to hear this number, already 200,000 federal workers have been laid off this year. 200,000. And Trump is threatening to cut hundreds of thousands more during this shutdown. We're talking about people who work at the EPA, the Department of Education, the Department of Homeland Security. You know, the agencies that actually keep America functioning. And who are these federal workers? Disproportionately black and brown folks. Federal jobs have historically been one of the most reliable paths to the middle class for black families. It's one of the few sectors where we've had some protection from discrimination, where we've been able to build careers and generational wealth. And now Trump is systematically destroying that pathway while calling it draining the swamp. Let me tell you what the swamp really is. It's billionaires getting tax cuts while working people lose their livelihoods. It's Trump's kids making backdoor deals with foreign governments. It's corporate lobbyists writing legislation. But sure, let's fire the lady at the Social Security office who's been helping seniors get their benefits for 25 years. That's the real problem. And here's the most infuriating part. Democrats are out here playing checkers while Republicans are playing destroy the board and declare victory. The messaging from our side has been pathetic. Kamala Harris put out a statement saying Republicans are in charge. Okay, sis, we know. What are we doing about it? Where's the fire? Where's the urgency? This is what drives me absolutely insane about the Democratic Party. We have the moral high ground. We have the facts. We have the American people on our side. 70% of Americans don't want mass layoffs, don't want Project 2025, don't want this chaos. But instead of hammering that message home every single day, our leadership puts out these tepid press releases that sound like they were written by a committee of anxious lawyers. Meanwhile, Republicans are out here lying with their whole chest. They're saying Democrats caused the shutdown. They're saying these layoffs are necessary. They're saying Project 2025 is about efficiency. And their base believes them because they say it with conviction. Let's talk about what Project 2025 actually is, because clearly not enough people read the 920-page fascist manifesto when it was released. And yes, I said fascist. I'm done being polite about this. Project 2025 wants to dismantle the administrative state. Sounds boring, right? But here's what that means in practice. It means getting rid of the agencies and regulations that protect workers, protect the environment, protect consumers, and most importantly for this conversation, protect civil rights. The NAACP issued a resolution about this because they understand what Black folks always understand first. When they come for government protections, they come for U.S. first. Project 2025 explicitly calls for dismantling affirmative action. Done, the Supreme Court already handled that. It calls for weakening anti-discrimination laws. It calls for reducing the enforcement powers of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, which is literally the agency that investigates workplace discrimination. They want to eliminate the Department of Education, the department that enforces Title IX and makes sure schools can't discriminate based on race or gender. The department that provides funding for schools in poor communities, which are disproportionately Black and brown communities. They want to privatize the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. You know who works for TSA? Black folks. You know who's going to get fired when it's privatized and corporations want to cut costs? Black folks. And here's the really insidious part. Project 2025 wants to ban federal agencies from collecting racial demographic data. Think about that. If they can't collect data on race, they can't prove discrimination. They can't track disparities in hiring, in lending, in housing, in healthcare. It's the same logic as banning critical race theory. If we don't talk about racism, then racism doesn't exist. Except it does exist, and now we just can't prove it in court. This is structural racism, baby. This is how you roll back 60 years of civil rights progress without having to explicitly say, we hate Black people. You just make it impossible to enforce civil rights laws. You defund the agencies that investigate discrimination. You eliminate the data that proves disparities exist. And then you shrug and say, well, there's no evidence of racism. It's sick, it's calculated, and it's working. Now let me talk about something that's going to make some of you all uncomfortable. Where are the Democrats on this? Where's the counter-messaging? Where's the plan? I'm going to keep it real with you, and this is where I probably lose some listeners. But oh well. The Democratic Party has a messaging problem, because the Democratic Party has a courage problem. Too many of our leaders are bought and paid for by the same corporations and special interests that fund Republicans. They just have better PR. Take AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. They spent millions getting moderate and conservative Democrats elected. They spent millions defeating progressive candidates who dared to question unconditional support for Israel's government. And now, those Democrats they bought? They're not going to fight as hard as they should on these domestic issues, because they're afraid of losing that funding. Look at Hakeem Jeffries. He's the House Minority Leader, right? He should be the tip of the spear on this shutdown messaging. But he's taken money from AIPAC. He's beholden to those interests. So when it's time to be bold, when it's time to really go there and call out the racism and the authoritarianism of what's happening, he pulls his punches. This is the problem with the Democratic Party. We're trying to fight fascism with one hand tied behind our backs because we're afraid of offending donors. We're afraid of being called too radical or too divisive. Meanwhile, Republicans are literally implementing a plan to dismantle the federal government, and nobody's calling them divisive. You know what Martin Luther King Jr. said, right? In his letter from Birmingham jail? He said the greatest obstacle to Black liberation wasn't the KKK or the White Citizens Council. It was the white moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace which is the absence of tension to a positive peace which is the presence of justice. You all, we are living in that quote right now. This shutdown, the mass layoffs, Project 2025, all of this is creating a racial justice crisis, and the response from white moderates, including white Democrats, has been to focus on process and norms instead of the actual human beings being harmed. 750,000 federal employees are furloughed right now, 750,000 people. And yes, when the shutdown ends, they'll get back pay. But you know who can't afford to miss 2 weeks of paychecks while we wait for Congress to get its act together? Working-class people. Black and brown families living paycheck to paycheck, single mothers, disabled folks who depend on federal programs. Meanwhile, Congress is still getting paid. Trump is still getting paid. The billionaires funding this chaos are still getting paid. But sure, let's talk about fiscal responsibility. Here's what makes me want to scream. We know this is racist. We know it. Every policy in Project 2025 disproportionately harms Black and brown communities. That's not an accident. That's not a side effect. That's the point. They want to return America to some imaginary pre-civil rights era where white supremacy was the law of the land and everybody knew their place. And you know how I know it's the point? Because they're not even hiding it anymore. They're openly talking about protecting Western civilization. They're banning books about Black history. They're making it illegal to teach that racism exists. They're eliminating DEI programs and calling diversity left-wing ideology. They're saying the quiet part out loud. And still, our Democratic leadership is out here trying to compromise with these people. You cannot compromise with fascism. You cannot meet authoritarianism halfway. You cannot extend an olive branch to people who want to strip you of your rights and your humanity. And this is where I get frustrated with my own folks sometimes. Because I see Black people online saying, both parties are the same, or voting doesn't matter. And I get it. I understand the exhaustion. I understand feeling like neither party truly represents us. But there is a material difference between a party that's disappointing and a party that's actively trying to destroy you. Yes, Democrats are weak on messaging. Yes, too many of them are corporate-owned. Yes, they don't fight hard enough for us. But Republicans are literally trying to eliminate the agencies that protect our civil rights. They're trying to make it legal to discriminate again. They're trying to destroy the Black middle class. So we must do two things at once. We must hold Democrats accountable, and we must stop Republicans from implementing Project 2025. That means voting, yes, but it also means organizing. It means showing up to school board meetings when they try to ban Black history. It means supporting progressive primary challengers who aren't afraid to name racism. It means building alternative power structures that don't depend on corporate donors. Okay, so we've talked about how bad things are, and they are bad. I'm not going to lie to you and say everything's fine. We are in a legitimately dangerous moment for American democracy, and especially for Black and brown Americans. But here's the thing. We've been here before. Our ancestors faced worse and survived. They faced slavery and survived. They faced Jim Crow and survived. They faced lynchings and redlining and the war on drugs and mass incarceration. And they survived, and they resisted. So what do? First, we stay informed. That's why podcasts like this exist. You need to know what's happening and why it's happening. You can't fight what you don't understand. Second, we support each other. These federal layoffs are real. People in our communities are losing their jobs. We need mutual aid networks. We need to take care of each other because the government sure isn't going to. Third, we organize. Find the progressive organizations in your area and show up. Support Black-led grassroots movements. Vote in every election, not just presidential elections. School board elections matter. State legislature elections matter. That's where a lot of these racist policies start. Fourth, and this is important, we primary weak Democrats. If your representative isn't fighting for you, find someone who will. Support progressive candidates who aren't afraid to name racism and fight against it. We need more people like Jasmine Crockett, like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like Ayanna Pressley, like Cori Bush. People who understand that this is not a time for politeness, this is a time for moral clarity. And fifth, we tell the truth. That's what I'm trying to do here. We tell the truth about what's happening. We call racism racism. We call fascism fascism. We don't sugarcoat it. We don't both sides it. We tell the truth, and we do it loudly and repeatedly until people cannot ignore it anymore. Look, I know this is heavy. I know it's exhausting to care this much when it feels like nothing changes. But here's what I want you to remember. They're doing all of this. The shutdowns, the layoffs, the book bans, the attack on civil rights, because they're afraid of us. They're afraid of our power. They're afraid of what happens when black and brown people and progressive people organize and vote and demand justice. If we weren't a threat, they wouldn't be working this hard to stop us. So yeah, are you fucking kidding me? Yes, every day. But also, we're not backing down, we're not shutting up, and we're damn sure not going anywhere. All right, everyone, that's all I have for you today. If this episode fired you up, share it, send it to your group chat, post it on social media. We need more people paying attention to this. And if you want to support the podcast, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, leave a review, all that good stuff. Until next time, stay angry, stay organized, and remember, when they go low, we go to hell. This has been Victoria Sharp, and this is AYFKM.